All Access Pete's Preseason is brought to you by these sponsors.
Hi, everybody, and welcome in. So good to have you on board for another edition of All Access. We're talking high school football with the season getting underway. In many respects, once school ended, it got underway for these area teams working so hard with their 7-on-7s, their off-season workouts. Now they get ready for the August camp ahead of the opening games. Week 0, as they call it in South Carolina, and Week 1 in North Carolina comes up on August 22nd. So if you're watching the show before then, well, you're counting down just like we are. Talking to a bunch of our great coaches from around the area, and Quinnon Isom from Union County getting ready for year number 2. So kind to join us here in the studio. And Coach, it was a bumpy first year. Didn't have the success you wanted to, but I know you guys have been full speed ahead on year number 2. And I would think just being now there in the hallways for a year and being at school, everything just has to be flowing so much more smoothly going into this year.
Yes, it's definitely a bit of a smooth transition for me, especially being in the first year of a head coach, being in the hallways, was able to kind of see the kids interact in a different light, especially from a day-to-day base. From my transition from Crest down to Union, the hurdle was kind of getting around the kids very early on. I was doing, but definitely not made a tremendous impact for me and our program, me being around the school and in the building, around the kids, the classroom, able to teach some of them as well. So that interaction is very huge for me and our program moving forward to this season.
You mentioned you came from Shelby Crest as an assistant. That was the latest stop on that journey before you got the head coaching job at Union County. And whenever I ask coaches who take on that first head coaching job, obviously, it's a different experience, and they talk about obligations like this and other things. But what was maybe the single thing that maybe around September or October you just sat back and thought, wow, this is why being a head coach is different than being an assistant or a coordinator?
The impact you have on the kids in the community. Realizing that when you walk through Walmart, when you come to the Red Games, when you go to certain restaurants, and even when you just show your face at certain events, that you're not just a coordinator no more, just an assistant coach, but you're the head football coach now, and realizing the positive impact I can make on the community and on just the young men and women in general in my time, because, realizing now that this is a true calling for me. The good Lord put me on here for a reason. It was His will, not my will, for it to be done. And for what I'm doing now, I realize that this is a true calling for me, that, me being here in Union, that was His will, not mine, because there's been plenty of the stops that I've been a part of, and this one of the stops the good Lord said, this is mine for me to have, with Him leading me along the way. So it's just one of those things, kind of realizing that, I have a tremendous impact moving forward.
So this is the latest stop in your coaching journey. Let's kind of talk about where you've been in life. Where'd you grow up in high school? And then take me from the growing up phase all the way through to where you are now.
Well, I grew up in Toccoa, Georgia, a little small town in northeast Georgia, right outside.
It's actually in our viewing area, believe it or not. Yeah, in Stevens County.
Yes, sir. Right outside of about 47 minutes away from Clemson. We're right on the borderline. So I always a country kid, grew up in the country. Sometimes around pigs and chickens and stuff like that. But we was a 3-year program. I played both sides of the ball, offensive line, defensive line, some tight ends, some linebacker. Was able to be really good for what we did. We ran the wing T system similar to what Teal Hannah does, but we ran that kind of same system when I was in school. Had a lot of good opportunities to play early between my 9th, 10th grade year. Then 11th grade kind of turned some heads. 12th grade ended up having an opportunity to go to Gardner Webb University. From there, I played at Gardner Webb University all 4 years, to where I played and started on the offensive line my first 2 years, and in the middle of my second year, I went and started on the defensive line and was able to be an all-conference guy from that point, playing defensive line from there. Once I was done playing college ball, I had an opportunity to play arena ball and overseas, but I chose to decline those and go back to school to become a graduate assistant 1 year with Gardner Webb. under Steve Patton. Then the next year I was a student assistant under Ron Dickerson Jr. Really was able to learn the game from those two men as far as the game of life itself. Also had other people next to me during that time, learning from them. Two influential individuals, not to single out from the most I've been around at that time, but Coach Mike Doolittle, who was formerly head coach at 96, where he won 2 state championships, and then Chris Foster, who's at Duke University right now as a running back coach. And both of those was very influential to me when I was playing, even in my coaching career now. And then funny, going into my story, as far as coaching, I would never thought I was going to be a high school coach. If you'd asked me this in high school, I'd have probably laughed in your face. But coming around early on, once I left school and I left Garden Web that second year, I came to South Carolina. I was, selling door-to-door service, AT&T U-verse, even doing Safe Light repairs and stuff like that. And had an opportunity at Greenville High School with Phil Magnet, and Coach Mike Doolittle got me hooked up with him. And from then on, from 2012 on, that's what I've been doing. I was the defense coordinator for the C&D team at Greenville High. And then from that point, I went to Easley after about year 2 at Greenville. First year, I skipped Seneca.
Oh, yeah. Seneca was in there, too?
Seneca. Seneca was my 3rd year. So I was 2 years with Coach Mag from 2012, 2013, then 2014. I was with Gene Cathcart. I learned a lot from there. I was able to move up. I was the JV defense coordinator, then the varsity outside backer coach. I learned a lot from the system and the way he did things, and even prioritized family time on Sundays, things of that nature. So I was only there for 1 year, and I got the opportunity to go with my former defense coordinator from Gardner Webb, Coach John Wyndham. He became the new head coach.
At Easley.
Yeah. And I was his defensive line player for him at Gardner Webb, and he brought me in to be the defensive coordinator. I was there for 3 years, from 15 to 18. And then after that stop, I went back to Greenville County to J.O. Mann High School as the assistant head coach, defensive coordinator. That was under Coach Burnett when he was there, and I had my 1 year there with him. And then very challenging year. Everywhere I've been, we've won some form of fashion. First year at J.O. Mann, we went 0-10.
Yeah.
And it was a struggle for me. But it challenged me as a coach, challenged me as a person, challenged me as a Christ follower as well. I got real close to Jesus in my walk and in my studying and scripture reading, things of that nature, and was praying about it. I really wasn't seeing my kids. We were still living in Seneca, driving back and forth. And
oh, wow.
They was very young, and it was about 1 hour and 15 every day, so it was a little over 2 hours and 30 minutes, close to 3 hours a day I was gone. I would see them in the morning when they would sleep, and then I'll see them when I get home when they would be asleep too. So me and my wife, we did a lot of praying, and opportunity came up. Ran High School had a defense coordinator position open, and we had ties as far as going back and forth with Wren when I was at Greenville, Seneca, and even at Easley. Realizing that Easley and Wren was a rival.
Sure.
My first contact with Tate was Greenville, where I think the score was like 71 to 65, something like that.
I remember those games, yeah.
Yes, sir.
That was something.
And that was in the playoffs, and at one point we had the record, and then Malden broke it. I forgot who they played. They ended up going
they beat Boiling Springs 83 to 79 in a regular season game at Boiling Springs, and I've always thought about that. I said to each head coach, was your offensive coordinator smiling and your defensive coordinator crying, regardless of what the outcome was? I'll never forget that game. Dre Massey was a star at Malden back at the time.
Yeah, I remember Dre. Dre was electrifying, man. He was when we watched him.
Yeah.
And but from those ties that we had, and then from my stints at Easley, had an interview with Coach Tate. We sat down, talked about things I wanted to do defensively, and how it would match with what they do. And I've never been around Wren or the community, and he gave me a call about a week or two later and said, am I ready to be the defensive coordinator? I said, yes, I am.
Yep.
And then from then on, the rest was history. So it went 0-10 with J.O. Mann, and prayers were answered. We got back closer with my family, and we was able to have all my kids and my wife even working in Anderson 1. We went 13-2, went to the state championship, won the upper state at Wren, something that hadn't been done in the history of the program.
Yeah.
Kind of transcended everything. And I'm always appreciative of Coach Tate for giving me the opportunity because he didn't have to do that. But he saw something in me that I didn't see in myself because, honestly, after that U10, I thought about real hard, this is real I want to do with my life, so I was being a football coach. But that kind of, it transcended my scheme, the way I look at things, the way I coach kids, and not just looking for, just the Jimmy and Joes, but am I really coaching the Jimmy and Joes to the best of their abilities? Am I putting them in the best spots? Do I know what I'm giving up on defense? Do I know what I can take away? I thought about all of that at J.O. Man, and it helped me tremendously as my career inclined more at Wren. And so I was at Wren for 3 years. And then from that point, me and my family had the opportunity to go to Crest High School the following year in 2022. Went up to Crest up under
Jim
Sosby.
Heck of a coach.
Yes. And I thought I'd been around some, and I've been around some offensive-minded coaches, but he is about one of the offensive-minded guys I've ever been around as far as how to pick apart the defense, schematics and things of that nature. But he, had an interview with him, was able to go back, and we almost considered it home because me and my wife, we met at Gardner-Webb University. But going back up there to the Shelby area, it was almost like home because we all grew up there, still some of the same ties I had when I was in school, meeting people in the community because I was a player and I was involved in the community, going to the different churches and things like that. So I was able to be the defense coordinator the first year. Then the second year I was the assistant head coach, and then I was the running back coach and specialties coordinator that second year. A lot of the kids now that I had then, they're D1 prospects now. They're P4 guys now. Two of them committed to NC State and Duke. So it's a few of them, man, that are still there. They're very talented. But that second year, we ended up going to the Western Conference Finals. We ended up losing to a very good team, Dudley team, who was very good. And, it was just one of those things that you kind of learn moving forward about the landscape of different schools across the state.
Sure.
As far as where that came about. So from that point, it led me to Union.
Yeah.
Me and my wife, we prayed during that time. And Coach Sosby, he was a very good help to me. Me and him had to talk. He felt like it was my time to, to put my name out there, because at one point I was not going to put my name out there. I wasn't going to do anything. We was going to hang tight where we were, allow my kids to kind of be put for a little bit and kind of grow from there. But we put my name in a couple of hats, kind of looked around, see what was the best fit.
Yeah.
Put in for a couple of places, and the good Lord allowed me to be here at Union. It shocked us, especially as prestigious Union County is. Union County is one of those places, man. It's one of them schools you don't pass up on. The tradition and the accolades that are here and things of that nature. But that's where it kind of led up to that point now.
Well, Coach, I wish we had more time on WSPA.com on Channel 7, and with our High School Red Zone season preview show, we will have a deep feature on your team and key players for year number 2. But it's been great just kind of getting to know more about the man behind the coach. Thanks so much for coming on board on the show. Quinnon Isom of Union County. Get the impression this guy is going to do some big winning as time goes on in a football hotbed with the Yellow Jackets. And thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all.
All Access Pete's Preseason is brought to you by these sponsors.
As the excitement builds for the 2025 area high school football season in the High School Red Zone, we're continuing to talk to area coaches. We'll be previewing a number of teams, roughly 55 of them, either on the news or on our High School Red Zone season preview special. Catch the previews each night at 6 and 11 on 7 News during the week, and on August 16th, a Saturday at 7 p.m. on Channel 7, our hour-long look ahead to the season on the High School Red Zone season preview show. One guy who's excited about where things are going with his program, he should be, because since he arrived there 4 years ago, he's continued to build up the Boiling Springs Bulldogs, and that would be Coach Matt Reel. And, Coach, I've got it written down here. The team went 1-10 before you got there, and then your first year you were 2-9, and then 4-7, and then last year 7-4. So the numbers themselves show that your ball club is improving. You got to replace a really good quarterback, a lefty Lincoln Husky. But I know you're excited with how things have built at Boiling Springs. You guys have done a nice job really getting everyone involved, haven't you?
Yeah, I think a lot of that just goes into what we talk about as far as building a program and not just a team. Every year, every high school is going to have a football team, but do you have a program, that can sustain the ups and downs, that can sustain, talent level, whether you're loaded or whether, it's a year where you graduate a ton of guys. So I think our administration's done a great job of allowing me to bring in the guys that we needed to bring in from a coaching standpoint, and those guys have done a really good job of developing our players, creating relationships with those guys and getting, kind of every ounce out of those guys that we can get out of them. And, a lot of that success that we've had and kind of the upward, trend we're on right now, can be equated to those coaches, developing our guys the way they have. And then obviously our players just buying into, what we're giving them every single day and trusting us to get them where they need to get to.
Bulldogs. Let's go into your background a little bit. You came to the upstate from North Myrtle Beach. You were over there as the head coach. But where did you grow up, and when did the coaching itch kind of get inside of you?
I grew up, in western North Carolina, in McDowell County, really about an hour and 15 minutes from here.
Yep.
My parents are still there. My sister's still there. A lot of my family's still there. So grew up there, played football, basketball, baseball, track, all that stuff, back whenever you could play 4 sports and get away with it. Now it's really hard for our kids to do that. But, I went to Limestone, played baseball there, was a part of the only conference championship there. And just kind of then got to see what, South Carolina high school football was like by just going and watching, being in Gaffney.
Yeah.
I mean, these guys used to rent out our front yard for Friday nights so they could park there, and just being able to see that.
Wow. Was that at the old reservation?
At the old reservation.
Yeah.
We actually lived on the road that leads into it.
Yeah.
And actually did my student teaching there at Gaffney High School with Coach Littlejohn. And at the time didn't understand the relevance of that, but fast forward, almost 20 years later,
and here you are.
Went back home, coached there for 7 years, and kind of learned, what hard work looked like, what doing more with less as far as facilities and things like that, and learned under some guys that were just great people, loved the kids, loved football, and we did the best we could with what we had, and was lucky enough to go to North Myrtle and understand, the big difference between North Carolina and South Carolina football in the lower state down there, and got my first head job there, got to cut my teeth and learn. And I think really, kind of prepared me for, this job, being in that league with South Florence, Hartsville, Myrtle Beach, Wilson when Coach Howard was there, and those guys were winning a lot of football games too. It was a battle every week. West Florence was in that group. Just really good football teams. We had to learn how to play really well every week, and that's the epitome of what we have now as far as our schedule. We're challenged every week.
Yeah.
There is no off games. There's no off weeks. Everybody we plays, coach really, really well, and they have great players. So, it's kind of been full circle for me, leaving college and then end up, right back in the same area. But it's been a great transition for me and my family.
So a couple of things. When I used to be over in the PD, I was at the CBS affiliate from 85 to 90, Florence, Myrtle Beach, so we avidly covered all the Horry County schools. And you'll appreciate this. North Myrtle Beach was in a league, they were 2A. I think it was Region 8 2A, but they were in with like Mullins, Hemingway, Lamar. I think Chesterfield and Central of Pageland were in that league. And it was a really interesting league. It was a geographically, if you were in North Myrtle Beach and you went and played Central of Pageland, it was a 2-hour bus ride. But by the time you got there, it had really grown. Gives you an example. And when I was there, a Waccamaw didn't exist. Carolina Forest didn't exist.
Sure.
All those kids, were going to Conway or whatever.
Yeah, and it was, it was a challenge for us too, because we grew from, when I got there, we were 3A, and then we were in 4A, and then the last 2 realignments were really close, like they are now, to being in 5A. So the way that our league was when we first got there was completely different than when we left.
So as I have it, you went from Limestone, you did your student teaching at in the Gaffney system, then you went back to Marion, North Carolina. That's where you cut your coaching teeth in football. At any point were you thinking about coaching baseball since you'd played at Limestone?
That was the plan. I think that was kind of, I didn't know what I wanted to do, honestly. When I was in college, I knew I didn't want to be away from sports. I wanted to be involved. I didn't know if that was going to be, from a teaching standpoint, from you do something else during the day, and then you get into coaching in the evening. I didn't know what that looked like, but it just made sense to be around the kids, to be around the program, to have an impact during the day. You can't do that if you're not in a school building. So, took that path, and just kind of, started out, the plan was, hey, be a head baseball coach. It's what kind of got you your education, got you where you're going, but man, once I got back and started coaching it again and just kind of fell in love with the game all over again and was given, a lot of responsibility kind of at an early age from my coaches and was able to kind of run with some things. And, I think as you start getting into it, you write down the things that you really like that you're seeing, the things that you would maybe do differently that you're seeing, and just kind of got to a point where I'm like, man, I'm here 24/7. I'm doing all this stuff anyway. Why not challenge yourself and see if you can actually, run a football program and not just run it, but run it at a high level.
Yeah.
And I think, I was lucky enough. We hit North Myrtle at a perfect time. Coach Woolbright had just kind of, he went there doing a lot of the same things we were trying to do, was just change the culture, change the process, change, something from, like I said, a team into a real program. And when Blair, took me with him there, we kind of piggybacked off a lot of the things that Perry had kind of cleaned up for us, and we could kind of search for the weight room and search for the community program and search for some of the stuff that Perry just didn't have time to get to yet. And then obviously when I took over, I kind of had a really good idea of the good things in our program, the things that needed to be adjusted. So I kind of had a cheat code, I felt like, in some ways, to be successful early. And it didn't hurt that we had, the 3 or 4 years I was there, we had probably the best group of athletes that had come through there. So having a program and having a talent and having a really good coaching staff, it all kind of worked together. And then the community was, they were just waiting, for that thing to explode. And when it did, they took off with it. And we had so much support there, and it, kind of propelled us, to where we're at here at Bowling Springs. Kind of the same situation. Came in, needed to change a lot. Just some energy, dedication to a lot of things to create opportunities for our players. The youth league, middle school, our high school. I never had 3 teams to coach before, as far as a freshman team, a JV team, and a varsity team. So that's been a challenge for me. And we feel like we've kind of got to a good place where we've got those 3 things kind of ironed out and what that looks like. Really excited about our freshman group this year. So just trying to build off of the things that made us successful at the coast. Just bring a lot of that, same energy, same guts. So just loving on our kids, giving them opportunities, and our kids have just really ran with it. In the 3 years we've been here.
Having the experience of being a head coach at North Myrtle, did that just make it, even though you had a rebuild job to do at Boiling Springs, and they'd enjoyed some success prior to that, but they'd kind of fallen into a rough patch. Do you think that if the Boiling Springs job had been your first head coaching job, that would have been like the rake handle hitting you in the forehead? Or was it so different than what you entered at North Myrtle that you really did kind of have to figure it out again?
That's a tough question. I think, like I said before, I think I did have the good thing about North Myrtle, I'd been there for 3 years before I got the head job. So, I'd been around those kids. Those kids wanted me to be the head coach. There was kids stopping in the office every day, talking to our AD, hey, look, man, we really want Coach Friel to get this job. We know what we're going to get. I was their freshman team head coach for 2 years. And, we had built a great relationship with each other, and they knew what they were going to get from me, and I knew what I was going to get from them. So, it's hard to tell. I think there's so many – I just remember learning so many lessons my first 2 or 3 years, being a head coach. And I really leaned on some veteran guys they're down in that area. Jody Jenneret, was a guy, I just talked to him earlier today. Mark Morris, a guy that had done it for a long time in North Carolina at a high rate. My defensive coordinator, Greg Hill, who's now the head coach there. Like, there was a lot of guys that, I felt like I knew everything I needed to know to be a head coach. But until you get in that seat and everything really comes down to you, it just helps having guys that you can, realistically talk to, understand what you're going through, and get some, good knowledge from them. So I don't know, man. I know I would attack things the same way. That's just who I am. I'm a relationship guy. When we first got here, the biggest thing was getting the right coaches in the building, getting a program in place, getting the weight room going. I mean, that was the first 6 months I was here. I ran the weight room. So, there's a lot of things I would have attacked the same way. Not being here and not knowing everything that I knew at North Myrtle, it may have made it a little bit different. But I think I would have still been the same guy I am. Still would have attacked things the same way that I do. Just hard to know if things would have worked out the way they worked out there here if this was the first time I got to be a head coach.
Just curious, what position did you play in baseball?
I was a center fielder and right fielder. And in football, I was running back and safety.
Wow.
A few pounds ago.
I got to be honest with you. You don't look like the guy who could run to the gap and catch a fly ball right now. But, hey, I'm not judging here. I'm sure you had the speed back then.
That was a few pounds ago. I tell the kids now I'd probably be a pulling guard or an H-back if I was lining up in our offense now. So
yeah. Gotcha. Well, Matt Reel, thanks so much. Thanks for coming in. Good luck as the 2025 season unfolds. And what a job you've done at Boiling Springs, getting them right back in the hunt in Region 2-5A.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you having us on. Anytime we can talk about our kids, our program, obviously we want to do that. And appreciate everything you guys do, showing our players, getting them, highlights, getting them on the media. And the last thing, always, go Dogs.